Hey harmonizers, in this video I wanted to show you guys what I do when I literally do not have a lot of time for a session. So this whole session is going to be less than 15 minutes total, but I wanted to show you guys that sometimes you might be pressed for time with your horse and you can still do some things. You can still bring your horse out. So here I've got Elysia and I'm just kind of warming her up with a little bit of walking stuff. And you have to be really realistic when you have a short time frame. You don't want to do anything that's going to take too long to work through. You want to kind of do things that you know your horse knows how to do and just kind of progress on them a little bit. And you also don't want to pick anything that's going to require a lot of warm-up time, because you're not going to have that time to be able to get your horse to have their muscles super warmed up. So for example, jumping is not a good idea when you've got a short time frame. So I'm just kind of doing a little bit of walking stuff, getting her moving around. I'm kind of getting her to move her hip out of the way and just playing around with her body shape at the walk to just kind of get her loosened up. And then we get into a little bit of trot, moving around. And so I'm going to ask her to kind of move forward a little bit and just kind of loosen up a little bit as we're going to move into a few other things. And we can progress from each task kind of relatively quickly, as long as I'm being realistic about what her muscles are ready to do. So for her, for example, you don't want to go for trotting after a tiny little bit and then all of a sudden start going into jumping or cantering. I want to make sure I'm still fair to her. So here I'm just asking her to move her hip out. She thought she kind of did a little canter stride for a second there. Wasn't really what I was asking for, but just something that she offered there. I'm just asking her to move out a little bit more. And here you can see I'm asking her to use herself just a little bit better. Throwing in a couple little fun changes of directions here. And getting her to go the other way. So trying to be pretty quick in my switching up of things. We're doing the stretching, a little bit of tucking work to kind of warm her up a little bit, to do a few little things here, because I want to remind her to kind of carry herself nicely and think about how she's going around. She tends to want to bend to the outside, so we want to be careful about that. A couple little changes of direction there, where I'm getting her to swing back onto her haunches, which is a good way to kind of get a bit of a booty workout without needing to without kind of doing too much other work. So like lots of booty workouts could be doing pull work or bounce work, which all require a little bit more warm up, and doing just a little change of direction like that as a haunch turn is a good way to just sink their weight onto their bum and kind of get a little bit of that happening. So here we do another little change of direction, because I'm starting to teach her how to do that swing piece that you guys have seen me do in a couple different videos where we're progressing. So that's actually pretty good there. So I thought, oh, okay, we'll do a little bit of this. It doesn't take a lot of warm up to be able to do. And it's a skill that she's already kind of working on a little bit. So here we do a little swing to go to the other side again, and the other side, and she's doing it pretty nicely. And you can see she's having a little lick and chew there moment. So I let her have that before I give her her cookie there. So I let her kind of think about that. So even though we're having a shorter session, I still want to make sure I pause and reward, and that I make sure I recognize when she's doing things in the right direction that I want her to do. Otherwise, she's not going to be able to learn and progress. She's going to get frustrated with the session. So here she ends up kind of getting confused a little bit, so I send her out. We do the little change again, and we do one more to make it a 3. And that was actually really, really good. She did a fantastic job at being able to swing her shoulders, and that was really nicely placed 3 times. We haven't done it quite like that before. Really, really nicely. So a really big part of having a short session with your horse is recognizing when you need to move on. And I think that's probably the hardest thing. Is I could push Elysia to do more of that swinging shoulders piece, but she gave me the best that we've ever done, where we did those 3 swings right left. So there's no point going on and on about that with her. So let's just move on, do something else, and we're going to keep things relatively low key here. I thought, let's try to do sideways over a barrel, which is something that she can do. She struggled with it in the past. And I wanted to try to do it as if we were at liberty. So you'll notice that I'm keeping my rope incredibly slack because I'm trying not to use that or touch it at all. She ends up getting it really nicely. So this is something that I thought would be a little bit of a struggle for her, potentially a struggle, but not unaccomplishable because it is something that she knows how to do, and she did it really nicely there. So now I'm asking her to back up towards me and kind of sideways over to me. I was asking her to turn with her tail there, and she got a little bit confused, but I have the rope attached, so if I need to, I can use the rope, but she ends up figuring it out. She ends up being able to figure out how to turn with her bum. So again, another thing that she's done back up by a tail. She hasn't done a lot of turning while backing up with a tail, so that's a little bit different for her to be able to do. So I'm giving it a try there, but I have the rope attached. And I decided for this session, because of the short time frame, I thought, I could do Liberty and kind of play around some of this stuff at Liberty, but I thought I'll be able to do some different things if I have the rope attached. So I'd rather just do that, and then that way if she's feeling frisky and she wants to run off and stuff like that, we're not wasting time with that. So you just kind of have to manage your expectations depending on where the horse is at. So here I'm actually really happy with what she's doing, where we were able to get that backwards circle. It wasn't really a pretty circle, but it was a backwards circle around the barrel with the tail, which is our first time doing that, kind of putting the backing up and the turns together. So we took a task that she already knows how to do, but we don't do often, and gave it a little bit of a purpose of going around the barrel. And I didn't focus on getting the shape super perfect, like it wasn't a perfect round circle, but I just made sure we had understanding. Then I'm like, you know what, let's just go on and try something else. So here we're working with our Spanish walk, and I'm asking her to touch my foot. So we're using that lift cue. And so we've done this like a couple times before. We don't practice it a lot, but I think it's a cute little thing if you can get your horse to lift up their foot and then reach out and touch yours. I think it's kind of sweet. So here she gets a little bit confused. So I'm asking her to lift the right foot there. And you can see she's kind of stomping it down. And so I've got my foot out in front of her, but not in the way that she could stomp it. But I'm just kind of holding my foot out and waiting for her to be a little bit softer. And when she can touch my foot nicely, then I'm going to reward. So I never want to reward her for stomping her foot down like that. Because remember, if you reward your horse for something, that's the behavior they're going to repeat. So you want to make sure that it's something that you like. So I waited for a softer move there before I ended up rewarding her for that. And it's not something that we practice a lot of, but I think could be a really cute thing in our freestyle to kind of put my foot out and kind of have her reach out and touch my foot. I don't know, maybe we'll do that at the ending, or maybe we'll do it somewhere in the middle, not really sure. And then because she was being a little bit stompy, here I'm just asking her to lift her leg and to keep it lifted rather than just putting it back down right away. So I'm focusing on the left foot there, asking her to hold it. There you can see she lifted it for a minute, and so we're going to reward her for that. So we always want to make sure we focus on one leg at a time. Here I'm going to ask for a back leg, and same thing, I'm just asking for her to hold it and lift it for a second, and rather than stomping it back down. So I'm looking for a little bit of lightness there. So there she lifts and she holds, so much better. So she's going to get a reward for that. So even though we have a shorter session today and we're not spending a lot of time with Elysia, we can still take the time to make sure we're getting the expression that we're looking for. So she struggled a bit with this back left here. So there you can see she holds up her leg and waits a second. So I don't have to have this attitude of, okay, she's going to hold it there for 10 seconds or whatever. I can just say, okay, I want a little bit of lightness there, and then let it go and be realistic for the session. Whereas if I had a longer session, maybe we would work on holding that up for a little bit longer. But you have to kind of pick your things that you're going to focus on. And you don't have to go from one thing to the next like what I'm doing here with Elysia, but I have quite a few little things that I'm working on with her. So I think it's more interesting for them and more interesting for me if we kind of tackle a little bit each time rather than just focusing on one thing the entire time. So here we're working on our canter in hand. She's such a big girl that for her to canter beside me is really tough. She's got such a long stride. She's such a big girl. So it's very challenging. And on a circle is fine, because on a circle, when I'm on the inside of the circle, she's covering more ground than me. But when we go on a straight line, that becomes very, very challenging. So I'm starting to try to teach her more about sticking beside me, which means she's going to have to collect a little bit more, because let's face it, I do not run that fast. She is a big, tall girl. So here I'm asking for the canter again. And we're starting on a circle, and then you'll see I kind of go on a straight line for a little bit and then try to stop on a straight line. And you can see how Elysia wants to kind of get in front of me and continue on that circle. And so I want to try to show her, like, when we get on a straight line, you have to kind of rate yourself to stay beside me. And she's really not cantering that fast. She's just such a big girl with such a big canter stride. So it makes it really, really tricky for her to get all these little pieces figured out. So since we kind of, at this point into our workout, we've been moving her around for over 10 minutes. So she's been doing walking, some trotting, mostly a lot of walk, but she's been moving her muscles. So then that's why we're working on some of that canter stuff. So although she could be warmed up even more after 10 minutes of walking, trotting stuff, horses are usually, ready to, they're loosened up enough that they can do some canter stuff as well. So there you can see when I asked for that canter there beside me, she just did a trot there. So here I get the canter, and I'm going to offer her a cookie there. And I'm trying to just reward her for the fact that she's getting the canter beside me. And we're trying to get it more on those straight lines. So we're doing shorter bursts of canter, but trying to get more straight lines in the process of what we're doing. And then, of course, we still take the time to walk in between a little bit, have those rest, digest moments, so that way she knows she's doing the things that I want her to do. We're going to come back over to this barrel here. So when we first did the sideways over the barrel, I did it from the her left side. So now I'm doing the sideways over the barrel to the right side. And there I'm pretty happy with, even though she kind of kicked the barrel, she didn't actually get nervous about it. And if you guys remember from past videos of Elysia, that's been an issue for her in the past, is being worried about touching that barrel, and that's been the hesitation for her about whether or not she should do that. So I was pretty happy that she seems totally whatever when it comes to that barrel. And switching up, going from canter work to something like that where we're doing sideways, just helps them not get too tired, helps them stay kind of interested and engaged in what we're doing, and also kind of balances the energy so we can go from kind of up energy to down energy. So this here was basically a 13-minute session, and that kind of gives you guys a look of, even though you might have a short time frame, you can actually pack in a lot and make a little bit of progress on different things. So just chip away at it.